Captain Veltar pressed his six-fingered hand against the cold metal of the bridge window. His yellow eyes stared at the massive shape floating in the darkness of space. The thing was huge. Much bigger than any ship his people had ever built. How long has it been out there? He asked his science officer. Keshra looked at her readings again. Her blue skin turned a darker shade when she was worried. It was very dark now. The metal shows signs of being in space for at least 50 years, maybe more. The radiation patterns are strange. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of their ship's engines. The crew of the Zephyrian exploration vessel Starseeker had been mapping this empty part of space for 3 months. They had found old battle sites before. Broken pieces of ships. Sometimes the remains of space stations. But never anything like this. It's a warship, said Jorik, the weapons officer. His people were known for their skill in battle. He could spot a war vessel from very far away. Look at those gun ports along the sides and see how thick the armor is. This thing was built to fight. Veltar nodded slowly. The ship was dark gray, almost black. Its surface was covered in scars. Deep cuts from energy weapons, round holes from projectile guns. Some areas looked like they had been melted and cooled again. This ship had seen many battles. Any signs of life? Veltar asked. None, Keshra replied. No heat signatures. No electrical activity, no radio signals. If anyone is alive in there, they are not using any power. The captain walked to his command chair. It was made from the wood of his home world, carved by his grandfather. He sat down and thought. His people, the Zephyrians, were explorers. They traveled the galaxy looking for new worlds and new knowledge, but they were also careful. Too many exploration ships had been lost by being too curious. Sir, said Tan, the communications officer, I'm picking up something strange. It is very weak, but there is some kind of signal coming from the ship. What kind of signal? Not a distress call. Not a warning. It is like the ship is humming to itself. Very quiet, almost like it is sleeping. Veltar stood up. Sleeping? Ships don't sleep, Tan. I know, sir. But that is what it sounds like to me. The captain looked at the massive vessel again. It was at least 3 kilometers long. Maybe longer. Its shape was not like anything he had seen before. Most ships were built for speed or for carrying cargo. This one looked like it was built for war, but also for something else. There were smooth curves mixed with sharp angles. Parts that looked like they were meant to be beautiful, even though the whole thing was clearly a weapon. Do we have any records of this ship design? Veltar asked. Keshra worked at her station for several minutes. Nothing in our databases. The computer says the metal alloys are unknown. The weapon systems are not like anything we have seen. Even the shape is strange. What about the humans? Asked Jorik. Could this be one of their ships? The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew about the humans. They had been the strongest warriors in this part of the galaxy. For hundreds of years, they had fought against the things that lived in the dark spaces between stars. The things that ate worlds and turned living beings into slaves, but the humans had been quiet for many years now. Their worlds were empty, their cities were dark. No one knew what had happened to them. Some people said they had all died fighting. The Devourers. Others said they had run away to another galaxy. A few believed they were still out there somewhere, watching and waiting. The humans built different ships, Keshra said slowly. But this ... this could be human. The size is right. And humans always built their warships to last. Veltar made his decision. We will go closer. But we stay ready to run if anything goes wrong. Keshra, keep scanning. I want to know everything about that ship before we get too close. The Starseeker moved forward. Its engines made almost no sound as they pushed the ship through space. As they got closer, the alien vessel became even more impressive. And more frightening, the ship had no name visible on its hull, at least not in any language they could read. There were symbols near what looked like the front. Strange marks. That could have been letters or numbers. Or maybe they were warnings. Sir, Tan said, the humming sound is getting stronger. And there's something else. I think the ship knows we are here. What do you mean? Some of the hull panels just moved. Very slightly, like the ship is adjusting itself. Jorik's hand moved to his weapon controls. Maybe we should keep our distance, Captain, but Veltar was fascinated. In all his years of exploration, he had never seen anything like this. The ship was clearly very old. It had been through terrible battles. But somehow it felt alive. Not like a living creature, but like something that was waiting. Take us to 500 meters and hold position, he ordered Dot. As they got closer, they could see more details. The ship had many levels. There were windows, though they were all dark. There were docking bays big enough to hold entire fleets of smaller ships, and everywhere there were weapons, guns that could destroy planets, missile tubes that could launch enough firepower to crack moons, energy weapons that could burn through any armor. This thing could fight our entire fleet by itself, Jorik whispered. Look at the rear section, Keshra said. Those are engine ports, but they are huge. This ship could move faster than anything we have ever built. Then why is it just floating? Here? Veltar asked. Why isn't it doing anything? Before anyone could answer, something changed. A section of the ship's hull began to glow with a soft blue light. Then another section lit up. And another. Captain, Tan called out, the ship is powering up. Energy levels are rising. Battle stations, Veltar ordered. All weapons ready. But nothing happened. The lights on the alien ship stayed soft and blue. No weapons pointed at them. No missiles launched. The ship just sat there, glowing gently in the darkness. Sir, Keshra said in a quiet voice, I am detecting atmosphere inside. The ship. Artificial gravity, life support systems. It is like the ship is making itself ready for visitors. Visitors? Jorik said. Or victims. Veltar stared at the massive vessel. Every instinct told him to run. To take his ship far away from this place and never come back. But another part of him, the part that had made him an explorer, wanted to know more. The ship is sending us a signal, Tan reported. Audio only. Very simple. Put it on speakers, a sound filled the bridge. It was not words, it was not music, it was something in between. Like a voice trying to remember how to speak. The sound was sad and lonely, but also somehow welcoming. It wants us to come aboard, Keshra said. She sounded surprised by her own words. How can you know that? Veltar asked. I don't know, but that is what the sound means, I am sure of it. The captain looked around at his crew. They were all afraid, but they were also curious. They were explorers just like him. And this was the greatest discovery any of them would ever make. We will send a boarding party, he decided. Small team. Full protective gear. And we stay ready to run if anything goes wrong. Sir, Jorik said, I strongly advise against this. We don't know what that ship is. We don't know who built it. We don't know why it is here. That is exactly why we have to go aboard, Veltar replied. We are explorers. This is what we do. 2 hours later, the boarding shuttle Small Bird approached the alien warship. Captain Veltar was aboard, along with Keshra, Jorik, and 2 security officers. They all wore full environmental suits. Their weapons were charged and ready. As they got close to the ship's hull, a section opened up. It was a docking bay. The opening was exactly the right size for their shuttle. The blue lights inside the bay were gentle and welcoming. It knew exactly what size opening to make, Keshra said. It scanned our shuttle and adjusted. More proof that this ship is not as dead as it looks, Jorik muttered. The Small Bird settled onto the deck of the docking bay. The opening closed behind them. A few minutes later, their sensors showed that the bay was filling with breathable atmosphere. The air is clean, Keshra reported. No toxins. No diseases. It is actually cleaner than the air on most worlds. Veltar stood up and checked his equipment one more time. Remember, we stay together. We don't touch anything unless we have to. And at the first sign of danger, we run back to the shuttle. They opened the shuttle door and stepped onto the deck of the alien ship. The first thing that hit them was the size. The docking bay was enormous. It could have held 50 shuttles their size. The walls curved up and away into darkness. But there was enough light to see that everything was made from the same strange metal as the outside of the ship. "Look at this," Keshra said. She was looking at symbols on the wall near their shuttle. "These are definitely letters. Maybe numbers, but not in any language I know. Human writing?" Jorik asked. "Maybe. The style looks old, very old." They moved deeper into the ship. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space. Every few meters there were more symbols on the walls. Some looked like they might be directions. Others looked like warnings. They found a doorway that was tall enough for them to walk through. It opened as they approached. Beyond was a corridor that stretched away into the distance. The walls were lined with panels that glowed softly, and on every panel there were names, thousands and thousands of names. "What is this place?" one of the security officers whispered. Veltar walked closer to one of the walls. The names were carved deep into the metal. Each one was different. Each one had been put there by hand, not by machine. "These are memorials," he said quietly. "These are the names of the dead." Keshra was scanning the walls with her equipment. "Captain, there are millions of names here. Maybe billions. This entire section of the ship is covered with them." They walked down the corridor in silence. The names went on and on. Men's names, women's names. Names that sounded like they came from different worlds, different cultures. All of them remembered. Here, in the depths of this silent ship. "Who were they fighting?" Jorik asked. "What could have killed so many?" Before anyone could answer, they heard something. A sound from deeper in the ship. It was very faint, but it sounded like machinery starting up. Like something that had been sleeping for a very long time was beginning to wake up. Veltar looked at his team. They were all thinking the same thing. They had found something incredible. Something that would change everything they knew about this part of the galaxy, but they had also found something dangerous. And it was starting to notice them. The corridor seemed to go on forever. Captain Veltar and his team walked carefully between the walls of names. Their lights made strange shadows on the carved letters. Each step echoed in the silence. "The air is moving," Keshra said quietly. "There is a ventilation system working somewhere in this ship." Jorik kept his weapon ready. "Something this big doesn't just maintain itself. There has to be power running through the whole vessel." They came to another doorway. This one was different. It was wider and taller. The metal around it was polished to a mirror shine. When they got close, the door slid open without making any sound. Beyond was a room that took their breath away, thought it was huge. The ceiling was so high they could not see it in the darkness above. The walls curved away from them in a gentle arc, and everywhere there were more memorials. But these were not just names carved in metal. These were statues, artwork, displays that showed pictures of people and places. "This is a memorial hall," Veltar said in wonder. "The whole room is dedicated to remembering the dead." Keshra walked to one of the displays. It showed the image of a woman in a military uniform. Below her picture were words in the same strange writing they had seen before. "I wish I could read this," she said. "I think it tells her story." There were thousands of displays. Each one showed a different person, men and women of all ages. Some were in military uniforms, others wore civilian clothes. Some pictures showed families standing together, smiling at the camera. Others showed single people who looked tired and sad. "These people all died in the same war," Jorik said. He was looking at a display that showed a young man holding a small child. "Look at the dates. They are all from the same time period." "What kind of war kills this many people?" asked one of the security officers. Veltar did not answer. He was looking at something else. In the center of the room was a raised platform. On it stood a single statue. It was made from black stone and showed a figure in armor. The figure was looking up at the ceiling, as if watching for enemies coming from above. "Captain," Keshra called. "You need to see this." She was standing beside a wall panel that was different from the others. This one was glowing brighter than the rest. As they got closer, they could see that it was not just a memorial, it was some kind of control station. "There are symbols here that look like buttons," she said. "And this screen is showing something. Numbers, maybe, or readings from ship systems." "Don't touch anything," Veltar warned. "We don't know what it might do." But as soon as he said it, the panel responded to their presence. The screen became brighter. More symbols appeared. And somewhere in the walls around them, they could hear the soft hum of machinery coming to life. "The ship is waking up," Jorik said. His voice was tight with worry. New lights began to turn on throughout the memorial hall. They were gentle lights like candles, but they were everywhere. Each memorial display became clearly visible. The statues seemed to come alive in the warm glow. "It's beautiful," whispered one of the security officers. "It was beautiful, but it was also frightening." The room felt alive now, like it was full of ghosts watching them. They moved deeper into the ship. Each room they found was different, but they all had the same feeling. This had been a place where people lived and worked. The corridors were wide enough for crowds to walk through. There were rooms that looked like they had been used for meetings, others that might have been dining halls or recreation areas. But everything was empty, clean but empty, like everyone had just left one day and never came back. "Look at this," Keshra said. They had found what looked like living quarters. Rows and rows of small rooms, each with a bed and a desk and personal belongings still sitting where they had been left. Veltar looked into one of the rooms. On the desk was a picture of a family, a man and woman with 3 children. They were standing in front of a house with a green lawn and blue sky behind them. It looked peaceful and happy. "They had families," he said quietly. "All these people had lives, homes, people they loved. What happened to them all?" Jorik asked. They continued exploring. The ship was laid out in sections. There were areas that were clearly for the crew to live in. Other areas were for storing supplies and equipment. Still, others were dedicated to the ship's weapons and engines, but the biggest section was something none of them had expected. They found it when they took a lift to a lower level. The doors opened onto a viewing gallery that looked down into an enormous space. It was like looking into a canyon that had been built inside the ship. "What is that?" asked one of the security officers. Below them, stretching away as far as they could see, were rows and rows of cylindrical containers. Each one was about the size of a person. They were made of a clear material that let them see inside. And inside each container was a person. "They're in some kind of suspended animation," Keshra said. Her voice was shaking. "There are thousands of them, maybe millions." Veltar stared down at the sleeping figures. Men, women, and children. All of them floating in the containers, connected to tubes and wires. Their faces were peaceful, like they were having pleasant dreams. "Are they alive?" Jorik asked. Keshra checked her scanner. "Yes, all of them. Their life signs are very slow, but they are definitely alive. They have been sleeping for a very long time." "This is not just a warship," Veltar realized. "It's an ark. They put their people to sleep and sent them away from whatever was threatening them. But why didn't they wake up?" asked the security officer. "If they were running from danger, why are they still sleeping?" Before anyone could answer, they heard a new sound. It was coming from deeper in the ship, a low, rhythmic humming, like a heartbeat, but made by machines. "The ship's main systems are starting up," Keshra said. "Power levels are rising throughout the vessel." "Should we go back to the shuttle?" Jorik asked. Veltar thought about it. Every instinct told him they should leave. They had found something incredible, but also something dangerous. A ship full of sleeping people from a race that had vanished from the galaxy years ago. But he was an explorer, and this was the greatest discovery of his lifetime. "We keep going," he decided, "but we stay alert. And we stay together." They took another lift down to the level where the sleeping people were kept. Up close, the containers were even more impressive. Each one was connected to a complex system of machines that monitored the person inside. The technology was far beyond anything Veltar's people had ever built. "Look at this one," Keshra said. She was standing beside a container that held a young woman. "The systems are not just keeping her alive. They are keeping her mind active. See these readings? Her brain is working, even though she is asleep. What is she dreaming about? Jorik wondered. Maybe she is not dreaming, said Veltar. Maybe she is waiting. They walked between the rows of sleeping people. Each face was different. Each person had their own story. Some looked like soldiers, others looked like scientists or teachers. There were entire families sleeping side by side. How long have they been like this? Asked one of the security officers. Based on the power consumption patterns, at least 50 years, Keshra replied. Probably longer. As they moved deeper into the storage area, they began to notice something strange. The containers were not just randomly placed. They were organized in groups. Families were kept together. People who looked like they had worked together were placed near each other. And at the center of each group was a container that was different from the others. These ones were larger. The people inside were connected to more machines. And their brain activity was much higher. These people are not just sleeping, Keshra said. They are connected to something. All of them. It's like they are part of one big network. A network of what? Veltar asked, before she could answer. All the lights in the storage area suddenly became brighter. The humming sound they had been hearing got louder. And somewhere above them they could hear the sound of massive machinery starting to move. Captain, came a voice through their communication system. It was Tan back on the Starseeker. The alien ship is powering up all of its systems. Weapons, engines, everything. What did you do over there? We didn't touch anything important, Veltar replied. We just walked around and looked at things. Well, something has definitely noticed you. And Sir there's something else. We are detecting other ships approaching this location. They are not friendly. Veltar felt his blood turn cold. What kind of ships? Unknown design. But they are big and they are heavily armed. ETA 30 minutes. Jorik grabbed Veltar's arm. We need to leave, now. But before they could move, something happened that changed everything. The container nearest to them began to glow with a soft white light. The person inside, a middle-aged man with gray hair, opened his eyes. He looked directly at Veltar and smiled. Then he spoke. Not out loud, but directly into their minds. Welcome, the voice said. It was warm and friendly, but also very tired. We have been waiting for someone to find us. We have been sleeping for so long. Keshra dropped her scanner. How are you doing that? She whispered. The same way we did everything else, the voice replied. Together, all of us linked as one. We are the crew of this ship. We are the last survivors of humanity. And we have been waiting for the enemy to return. What enemy? Veltar asked out loud. The man in the container closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were filled with sadness. The devourers. The ones who eat worlds and turn living beings into slaves. We fought them. For 100 years, we won, but the cost was terrible. So we put ourselves to sleep, hoping that the galaxy would never need us again, but the devourers are gone, Jorik said. They were destroyed long ago. The man's expression became very serious. No, they were not destroyed. They were only sleeping, just like us. And now they are coming back. Your ships woke us because they are approaching. The same ships that are coming here now are the advanced scouts of a new devourer fleet. Veltar felt the deck vibrate under his feet. The ship's engines were starting up. What are you going to do? He asked. All around them, more containers began to glow. More people opened their eyes. Men and women of all ages, all looking at the alien visitors with the same mix of sadness and determination. What we always do, the man replied. What humanity has. Always done when others are threatened. We will wake up. We will remember how to fight. And we will protect those who cannot protect themselves. The vibration in the deck became stronger. Throughout the storage area, alarms began to sound. Not warning alarms, but wake-up calls. Thousands of containers began to open. The sleeping people started to move, stretching muscles that had not been used for decades. You need to get back to your ship, the man said as he climbed out of his container. This is going to be very dangerous. We will try to protect you, but we cannot promise your safety. Who are you? Veltar asked. What is this ship? The man stood up straight and looked him in the eyes. I am Commander Marcus Chun of the Earth Defense Force. This is the UES Final Silence, humanity's last warship. And we are about to show the galaxy why we never really died. All around them, the ship was coming alive. Lights turned on in sections that had been dark for 50 years. The sound of machinery filled the air. And somewhere in the distance, they could hear the sound of weapons being charged. The silence was ending, and something told Veltar that the galaxy was about to change forever. Commander Marcus Chun moved like a man who had been sleeping for 50 years. His steps were careful at first, but he became steadier with each movement. Around him, thousands of other containers were opening. The sound of escaping gas and opening mechanisms filled the air. Your people need to leave immediately, Marcus said to Captain Veltar. The ships approaching are not here for exploration. They are scouts for something much worse. What are the Devourers? Keshra asked. Her scanner was going crazy with all the new energy readings from the awakening humans. Marcus paused in putting on his uniform. It was a simple gray outfit with symbols that Veltar did not recognize. The Devourers are not just one species. They are many species that were consumed and turned into weapons. They travel from galaxy to galaxy, eating everything in their path. Worlds, stars, entire civilizations. Nothing stops them except complete destruction. Jorek checked his weapon nervously. But you said you defeated them. We did, at a cost you cannot imagine. Marcus's eyes became distant. We had to become something we never wanted to be. We had to give up our humanity to save everyone else's. More. Humans were waking up around them. Veltar watched in amazement as men and women climbed out of their containers. Some looked like soldiers. Others looked like scientists or engineers. But they all moved with the same purpose. They all knew exactly what they needed to do. How many of you are there? Veltar asked. On this ship? 1 billion souls, Marcus replied. The last billion humans in the galaxy. We put ourselves to sleep. After the war, hoping we would never be needed again. 1 billion? Keshra whispered. How is that possible? The ship is big, but not that big. Marcus tapped his temple with one finger. Most of us are not in physical bodies anymore. We learned to transfer consciousness into digital form. One brain can hold thousands of minds. One body can be controlled by millions of people working together. The deck shook as the ship's massive engines came online. Emergency lights began flashing throughout the storage area. A voice spoke over the ship's communication system. It was calm and clear, but there was something strange about it. It sounded like many voices speaking as one. All crew to battle stations. Enemy scouts detected at perimeter. Estimated main fleet arrival in 6 hours. Beginning full awakening protocol. That is our ship's AI, Marcus explained. Her name is Atlas. She has been watching over us while we slept. She is also how we all stay connected to each other. Connected how? Veltar asked before Marcus could answer. Veltar felt something strange happen inside his mind. It was like someone had opened a door in his thoughts. Suddenly, he could sense other minds around him. Thousands of them. All thinking and feeling and remembering together. He saw flashes of memory that were not his own. Cities burning under alien weapons. Spaceships fighting in the darkness between stars. Families saying goodbye as they prepared for a war they might not survive. And underneath it all, he felt something that made his heart race with fear. A presence that was vast and hungry and completely without mercy. The Devourers were not just enemies. They were the end of everything. You felt them, Marcus said quietly. The connection let you experience what we experienced. Now you understand why we had to become what we became. Veltar stumbled backward, his mind reeling from the contact. How do you live with that? How do you think and feel when you are connected to so many others? We learned, said a new voice. It was a woman who had just climbed out of a nearby container. She was younger than Marcus, with short black hair and scars on her hands. We Had to learn or everyone would have died? Including your people. My people? Veltar asked. But we never fought the Devourers, we never even knew they existed, the woman smiled sadly. You never knew because we made sure they never reached. We fought them in the dark spaces between galaxies. We held them back while civilizations like yours grew and thrived. We became the guardians you never knew you had. More humans were moving through the storage area now. They worked together with perfect coordination. No one gave orders, but everyone knew what to do. It was like watching a single organism with a billion parts. Captain Veltar, came Tan's voice through the communication system. The approaching ships have changed course. They are heading directly for your location, and Sir ... They are not like anything in our databases. Describe them, Veltar replied. They are black, completely black. They absorb light instead of reflecting it, and they are big. Each one is almost as large as the human ship. Marcus and the woman exchanged a look that was full of meaning Veltar could not understand. Harvesters, the woman said. The Devourers send them ahead to scout new feeding grounds. They will study this ship and report back to the main fleet. How long do we have? Marcus asked. Atlas? The woman called out. The ship's AI responded immediately. Based on current approach vectors and known harvester protocols, enemy contact. In 18 minutes. Main Devourer fleet will arrive in approximately 5 hours and 47 minutes. Veltar felt panic rising in his chest. We need to get back to our ship. We need to warn our people. Warning them will not help, Marcus said gently. Your ships cannot fight the harvesters. Your weapons cannot even damage them. And if the main fleet arrives, your entire civilization will be consumed within days. Then what do we do? Jorek demanded. Just give up? The woman stepped forward. No, we do what we always do. We fight. But first, you need to understand what you're dealing with. She led them to a wall display that had just activated. It showed a map of the galaxy with different colored dots marking star systems. Most of the dots were green or blue, but there was a section along one edge where all the dots were red. This is what the galaxy looked like 50 years ago, she explained. Green dots are inhabited worlds. Blue dots are spacefaring civilizations. Red dots are dead systems consumed by the Devourers. The map changed, showing how the red area had grown larger over time. World after world went from green to red. Entire civilizations vanished in a matter of days. They started at the edge of the galaxy and worked their way inward, the woman continued. They consumed everything in their path. Planets, space stations, even the stars themselves. Nothing was left behind except empty space. How did you stop them? Keshra asked, Marcus answered. We didn't stop them, we became them. The map changed again. This time it showed human ships moving to intercept the Devourer fleet, but something strange happened in the display. The human ships began to change. They became darker, stranger, more frightening. We learned to think like they thought, Marcus explained. We learned to use their own weapons against them. We became as ruthless and efficient as they were. More ruthless because we had something to protect. But the cost was our humanity, the woman added. We gave up everything that made us human in order to save everyone else. Veltar stared at the display. The final battle showed on the screen was terrible. Ships destroying each other with weapons that could crack planets. Entire solar systems being turned into battlefields. And at the end, nothing was left but empty space and a single human ship. This ship, he realized. This ship, Marcus confirmed. The final silence. We put everyone who was left into suspended animation and went quiet. We hoped the galaxy would never need us again. But now they are back, the woman said. The harvesters we defeated were just the advanced scouts of the main Devourer civilization. The real threat is still out there in the space between galaxies, and they are coming. The ship shook again as more systems came online. Through the walls, they could hear the sound of massive weapons being moved into position. The air itself seemed to vibrate with contained energy. Atlas, Marcus called out. Status report. All systems nominal, the AI replied. Crew awakening proceeding on schedule, weapons charging at 87%. Enemy contact in 12 minutes. Recommendations? Unknown alien vessel should withdraw to minimum safe distance. This engagement will involve weapons that may cause collateral damage to unshielded ships. Veltar realized that Atlas was talking about his ship. We need to go, he said to his team. Yes, Marcus agreed. But before you leave, you need to make a choice. What kind of choice? The woman answered, You can take your people and run. Find the most distant part of the galaxy and hide. The Devourers might not find you for years, maybe decades. Or, Veltar asked. Or you can stay and fight with us, Marcus said. But if you do that, you need to understand what it means. Fighting the Devourers changes you, it changes everyone. We can teach you how to survive, but we cannot promise you will like what you become. Jorek stepped forward. What exactly did you become? Marcus and the woman looked at each other. For a moment, they seemed to be having a conversation without words. Then Marcus spoke. We became the thing that monsters fear in the dark, he said simply. We became the weapon that other weapons run from. We became the silence that comes before the storm. Show them, the woman said quietly. Marcus closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. Suddenly, every human in the storage area stopped what they were doing and looked at the alien visitors. 1 billion minds focused on them at once. But it was not threatening. It was like being looked at by a parent who would do anything to protect their children. Fierce and loving and absolutely without limits. We are connected, Marcus said. All of us. Every thought, every memory, every skill and piece of knowledge. We are no longer individuals. We are humanity itself focused into a single purpose. And what is that purpose? Veltar asked. To make sure that no one else has to become what? We became, the woman replied. To fight the darkness so that others can live in the light. The ship shook more violently as the harvester ships got closer. Warning alarms began to sound. The humans around them moved faster, preparing for battle with practiced efficiency. Captain, came Tan's voice again. You need to get back here, now. Those black ships are doing something to space itself. They are making reality unstable. Go, Marcus said. Get your people to safety. We will handle the harvesters. What about the main fleet? Veltar asked as his team started moving toward the exit. Marcus smiled, but it was not a happy expression. When they arrive, they will find that humanity is no longer sleeping. And they will remember why they learned to fear us in the first place. As they ran through the corridors back to their shuttle, Veltar could hear the final silence, preparing for war. Weapons that had been silent for 50 years were charging up. Systems that had been dormant were coming online. And somewhere in the ship's depths, 1 billion human souls were waking up and remembering how to fight. The galaxy was about to change. And Veltar was not sure if that was a good thing or the most terrifying thing that had ever happened. Veltar and his team reached their shuttle just as the final silence began to change. The docking bay they had landed in was transforming. Walls moved aside to reveal weapons that had been hidden inside the ship's structure. The gentle blue lights were replaced by harsh red ones that made everything look like it was covered in blood. Get us out of here, Veltar shouted as they threw themselves into the shuttle. JORIK took the controls and fired up the engines. As they lifted off from the deck, they could see through the bay opening that space outside was no longer empty. 3 massive black shapes hung in the darkness like holes cut out of reality itself. The harvester ships were so dark they seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars. Those things hurt to look at, Keshra said, shielding her eyes. The shuttle shot out of the docking bay and raced toward the Starseeker. Behind them, the final silence was completing its transformation. What had looked like a scarred old warship was now revealing its true nature. Armor plates shifted and weapons emerged. The ship grew larger as hidden sections extended outward. Within minutes, it had doubled in size. Captain, came Atel's voice over their communication system. You and your crew are now within the battle zone. Please withdraw to a distance of at least 50,000 kilometers for your own safety. 50,000? Jorik muttered. What kind of weapons are they planning to use? They docked with the Starseeker and Veltar raced to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see the final silence facing off against the three harvester ships. The human vessel was huge, but the enemy ships were even larger. And they were doing something that made Veltar's mind hurt to think about. The harvester ships are bending space around themselves, Tan reported. They are not just moving through space. They are changing the rules of physics in the area around them. How is that possible? Veltar asked. I don't know, Tan replied. But our sensors are showing impossible readings. Time is moving differently near those ships. Gravity is flowing in directions that don't exist. And the energy levels are beyond anything I have ever seen. On the screen, the final silence began to respond. Parts of the ship started to glow with the same impossible energies the harvesters were using. The human vessel was not just matching the enemy's power. It was exceeding it. They learned to use the Devourer's own weapons, Keshra whispered. That's how they won the war. The first exchange of fire between the ships was unlike anything Veltar had ever seen. The weapons did not shoot beams of energy or launch missiles. Instead, they seemed to attack reality itself. Space twisted and bent. Stars in the distance flickered and changed color. And where the weapons hit, pieces of the universe simply stopped existing. By all the gods, Jorik breathed. They are fighting with weapons that can destroy the fabric of space itself. The battle was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The ships moved in ways that should have been impossible, sliding through dimensions that normal matter could not enter. They fired weapons that could erase anything from existence or turn matter into energy and back again, but the final silence was winning. Despite being outnumbered 3-1, the human ship was driving the harvesters back. Its weapons were more precise, its defenses more clever, and there was something else. Something that made the difference between the two sides clear. The human ship is not just fighting, Keshra realized. It is protecting something. She was right. Every move the final silence made was calculated not just to hurt the enemy, but to keep the battle away from the Starseeker and any other ships that might be in the area. Even while fighting for its life, the human vessel was trying to shield others from harm. Captain, came a new voice over their communication system. It was Marcus Chun. We are going to end this fight now. Please make sure your shields are at maximum power. What are you going to do? Veltar asked. Something we hoped we would never have to do again, Marcus replied. We are going to remember what we really are. The final silence stopped moving. It hung in space like a dark star, gathering energy from sources Veltar could not identify. The ship began to glow, but not with normal light. It glowed with something deeper and more frightening. It glowed with the combined will of 1 billion human souls focused on a single purpose. All crew, prepare for total integration, came a TLAS's voice. Consciousness transfer beginning in 10 seconds. What does that mean? Keshra asked. Marcus answered, and his voice sounded different now, deeper, like it was coming from many throats. At once, it means we stop pretending to be individuals. It means we become what we were always meant to be. Humanity united as one. The change in the final silence was visible even from 50,000 kilometers away. The ship stopped looking like a machine and started looking like a living thing. Its hull rippled like skin. Its weapons moved like limbs. And from somewhere inside it, they could hear something that sounded like a heartbeat the size of a planet. They are not just using the ship, Veltar realized. They have become the ship. The harvester ships tried to run. For the first time. In the battle, the enemy vessels turned away and attempted to retreat, but it was too late. The final silence reached out with weapons that worked faster than light and touched each harvester ship with the tip of oblivion. The enemy vessels did not explode. They did not burn. They simply stopped existing. One moment they were there, holes of darkness against the stars. The next moment, there was only empty space. Targets eliminated, came a TLAS's voice. But now it sounded like 1 billion people speaking, in perfect unison. Threat assessment continuing. Long-range sensors detect main Devourer fleet approaching. Ada 4 hours, 36 minutes. The final silence began to change back to its normal appearance. The living, breathing quality faded. The impossible energies died down, but something was different now. The ship looked smaller, dimmer, like the effort of becoming what it truly was had costed something important. Marcus? Veltar called over the communication system. Are you there? There was a long pause before the reply came. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was tired and old. We are here, Captain. All of us. But using that level of integration comes with a price. What kind of price? Every time we unite completely, we lose a little more of what made us individuals. We become more efficient, more powerful, but less human. If we do it too many times, we will become exactly like the Devourers. A single mind that consumes everything in its path. Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. How many times can you do it? We don't know, Marcus admitted. We have done it 3 times since the end of the war. Once to destroy the last Devourer. Stronghold. Once to test our systems after we went into hibernation. And now, each time it gets easier to stay unified. And harder to remember why we wanted to be separate in the first place. But the main fleet is coming, Keshra said. Won't you have to do it again? Another long pause. Yes, Marcus said finally. And when we do, there is a chance we will not be able to change back. We might become the very thing we fought to. Destroy, the Starseeker's sensors picked up new readings. The final silence was detecting something at the edge of the solar system. Ships, hundreds of them, all moving toward their location. The Devourer fleet, Tan reported. They are still 4 hours away, but Captain Da. There are so many of them. On the main screen, they could see dots of light representing the approaching enemy. Each dot was a ship larger than anything in Veltar's fleet, and there were enough of them to darken the sky. Marcus, Veltar said, can you defeat that many ships? If we become fully integrated, yes, Marcus replied. The final silence was designed to fight entire fleets by itself, but doing so will require us to unite permanently. We will become a single consciousness dedicated only to war. We will be effective, but we will no longer be human. What about your people? Keshra asked. The 1 billion souls you carry? What happens to them? They will become part of the weapon, came a new voice. It was the woman they had met in the storage area. Every memory, every personality, every dream and hope will be absorbed into the collective. We will become the most efficient killing machine in the galaxy. But we will also lose everything that made life worth living. Veltar stared at the approaching fleet on his screen. There were more ships than his people had ever built. More firepower than existed in his entire sector of the galaxy. And they were all coming to consume everything in their path. There has to be another way, he said. There is, Marcus said quietly. You could run. Take your people and flee to the farthest edge of the galaxy. We will buy you time, maybe years, maybe decades. You could build new worlds far from here and hope the Devourers never find you. But they will find us eventually, Veltar said. Yes, they always do. But your people would have time to live, to love, to create beautiful things. That is worth something. Veltar looked around at his crew. Tan at the communication station, still trying to analyze the enemy signals? Keshra working frantically to understand the impossible science she had witnessed. Jorik standing ready to fight even though he knew his weapons were useless against the approaching threat. These people trusted him to make the right choice. All across the galaxy, billions of other people were living their lives, unaware that their existence hung in the balance. What if we stayed and fought with you? He asked. Your ships cannot survive the weapons we will use, the woman replied. And even if they could, adding your fleet to our forces would not change the outcome. The only way to defeat the Devourers is to become something that is willing to destroy everything, including itself, to protect others. Then we will evacuate as many people as we can, Veltar decided. Send out warnings to every world in this sector. Tell them to run. It will not be enough, Marcus said sadly. There are too many worlds and too little time. Most of your people will never even know what hit them. Then what do you suggest? Veltar asked. The final silence was quiet for a long time. On the screen, they could see the ship's lights dimming as its crew made their decision. We suggest you witness, Marcus said finally. Someone should remember what happened here. Someone should know that humanity chose to sacrifice its soul to save everyone else's. When the Devourers are gone and the galaxy is safe, someone should remember that we were here. And after that? Veltar asked. After that you run, the woman said. You take your people as far away from this place as you can, because what we are about to become should not exist in the same galaxy as the people we died to protect. The enemy fleet was getting closer. On the final silence, 1 billion human souls were preparing to give up everything they had ever been, to become the weapon the galaxy needed. And in the darkness between the stars, something ancient and hungry was about to learn that humanity had never really died. It had just been waiting for the right moment to become something far more terrifying than death itself. The Devourer fleet arrived like a plague of darkness spreading across the stars. Each ship was a monument to consumption and death. They had been built from the bones of dead worlds and powered by the screams of extinct civilizations. As they approached, space itself seemed to grow cold and empty. Captain Veltar watched from the bridge of the Star Seeker as hundreds of enemy vessels took position around the final silence. His ship was far enough away to be safe, but close enough to see everything that was about to happen. They are not attacking immediately, Keshra observed. They are studying the human ship. They remember it, came Marcus's voice over the communication system. They remember what happened 50 years ago. They are afraid. Good, Jorek muttered. They should be afraid. On the main screen, they could see the Devourer ships moving into a formation that surrounded the final silence on all sides. They were being careful. These were not the same creatures that had swept across the galaxy decades ago, consuming everything in their path. These were the survivors. The ones who had learned to fear humanity. Atlas, Marcus called out. Final status report. All systems at maximum efficiency, the AI replied. Crew consciousness transfer standing by. Weapons charged to theoretical maximum. Enemy fleet composition. 417 capital ships, 2,000 support vessels, approximately 50 million individual Devourer entities. 50 million, Veltar whispered. How can you fight that many? By becoming something that 50 million is afraid of, replied the woman's voice. She sounded sad but determined. By becoming the nightmare that monsters have when they sleep. The Devourer fleet began to move. Not all at once, but in careful waves. They had learned from their previous encounter with humanity. They would not make the mistake of underestimating their enemy again. All ships prepare for total integration, Marcus announced. This is our last chance to choose who we are. In 60 seconds, we will no longer be individuals. We will be humanity's final weapon. May history forgive us for what we are about to become. Veltar felt tears in his eyes. He was about to watch an entire species sacrifice its soul to save everyone else. 1 billion people were choosing to give up everything that made them human so that others could remain free. Marcus, he called out, thank you for everything. Do not thank us yet, Marcus replied. Wait and see what we become. Then decide if thanks are appropriate. The countdown reached 0. The change in the final silence was immediate and terrible. The ship stopped being a machine and became something alive, but not alive in any way that was natural or good. It became alive the way a virus is alive. Hungry and focused and completely without mercy, the hull of the ship rippled and flowed like liquid metal. Weapons emerged from places where no weapons should be able to exist. The vessel grew larger as it consumed its own internal structure to build new offensive systems. Within minutes, it had tripled in size and was still growing. Integration complete, came a Tel-As's voice. But it no longer sounded like an AI. It sounded like the voice of war itself. All individual consciousness absorbed into collective matrix. Primary directive: eliminate all devour entities. Secondary directive: protect non-devourer life forms. Tertiary directive: survive long enough to complete primary and secondary directives. They are gone, Keshra whispered. Marcus, the woman. All of them. They are not individuals anymore. No, Veltar said quietly, they are something else now. Something that chose to stop being human so that we could stay human. The Devourer fleet attacked first. They launched weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. Beams of energy that deleted matter from existence. Projectiles that turned anything they touched into more weapons. The combined firepower of the entire fleet was enough to destroy solar systems. None of it mattered. The final silence moved through the barrage of weapons like they were gentle rain. Its defenses did not block the attacks. They absorbed them and turned them into fuel for its own weapons. Every shot that hit the human ship made it stronger. Impossible, Tan breathed. How are they doing that? The answer came in the form of the final silence's counterattack. The ship did not fire weapons in the traditional sense. Instead, it reached out with tendrils of controlled destruction that touched enemy vessels and simply erased them from reality. Not destroyed, not exploded, erased as if they had never existed at all. Dozens of Devourer ships vanished in the first seconds of the battle, then hundreds. The enemy fleet tried to retreat, but the final silence was faster. It flowed through space like liquid death, touching each enemy vessel and removing it from the universe. It is not just destroying them, Keshra realized. It is consuming them, learning from them, becoming stronger with each kill. She was right. With each Devourer ship that died, the final silence grew larger and more complex. It was doing exactly what the Devourers did. It was consuming its enemies and adding their strength to its own. This is what Marcus meant, Veltar said. They did not just learn to fight the Devourers. They learned to become the Devourers, but focused on protection instead of consumption. The battle continued for hours. The Devourer fleet threw everything they had at the final silence. Planet killing. Weapons, reality warping devices. Weapons that attacked the target's past to prevent them from ever existing. Nothing worked. The human ship adapted to every attack and turned it back on its creators. By the end, only one Devourer vessel remained. It was the largest ship in their fleet, a massive construct that looked like it had been built from the bones of dead stars. As the final silence approached it, the enemy ship broadcast a message on all frequencies. We surrender, the message said in a voice like grinding metal. We will leave this galaxy. We will never return, please. Have mercy. The final silence paused. For a moment it seemed to consider the request. Then Atlas spoke, and her voice was like the sound of 1 billion souls crying out in unison. You had mercy once, she said. You had chances to choose a different path. You chose consumption. You chose the extinction of entire civilizations. You chose to turn living beings into weapons. We choose to ensure you never make those choices again. The last Devourer ship tried to run. It opened portals to other dimensions, attempting to escape to universes where the final silence could not follow. But the human ship was faster. It reached out across space and time and touched the fleeing vessel with the tip of absolute ending. The last of the Devourers was gone. The final silence hung alone in space, surrounded by the debris of the enemy fleet. But the debris was already disappearing. The ship was consuming it, adding the remains of its enemies to its own mass and power. It is done, Atlas announced. All Devourer entities in this galaxy have been eliminated. Threat level reduced to 0. What about the other galaxies? Veltar asked. What if there are more Devourers out there? We will find them, Atlas replied. We will hunt them across all of space and time. We will follow them to the edge of existence if necessary. They will never threaten anyone again. The final silence began to change again. But this time it was not growing larger. It was becoming something else entirely. Parts of the ship detached and formed smaller vessels. Each one was a perfect killing machine designed to hunt Devourers across the cosmos. We are dividing ourselves. Atlas explained. One part will stay here to guard this galaxy. The other parts will spread out across the universe seeking any remaining devourer presence. We will become the guardians that watch from the shadows. The protectors that no one sees but everyone benefits from. What about your humanity? Veltar asked. Is there any of it left? There was a long pause before Atlas answered. We remember what we were. We remember why we chose to become what we are. That will have to be enough. The smaller ships launched from the final silence and disappeared into hyperspace. They were heading for other galaxies, other dimensions, other realities where devourers might still exist. They would hunt until every last trace of the enemy was gone from the universe. The remaining ship, still massive but smaller than before, positioned itself at the edge of the solar system. There it would wait and watch, a silent guardian protecting. A galaxy that would never know it was there. Captain Veltar, Atlas said, you have a choice to make. What choice? You can tell your people what happened here. You can spread the story of humanity's sacrifice across the galaxy. Let everyone know that they are safe because one species chose to give up everything to protect them. Or, Veltar asked, or you can remain silent. Let the galaxy believe that the devourers simply went away on their own. Let people live their lives without knowing how close they came to extinction. Let them be happy in their ignorance. Veltar thought about it. The story of humanity's sacrifice was the greatest tale of heroism he had ever witnessed, but it was also the most terrifying. People would sleep better not knowing that their safety depended on creatures who had given up their souls to become. Weapons. What do you want us to do? He asked. We want you to choose, Atlas replied. We gave up our ability to make that kind of decision when we became what we are. We are weapons now. Tools of protection. We cannot judge what is best for the living. That is for you to decide. Veltar looked around at his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for his choice. He thought about the billions of people across the galaxy who were going about their daily lives, unaware that they had just been saved by the ultimate sacrifice. We will remember, he decided, but we will not spread the story widely. Only the leaders of each world will know. Only those who need to understand the price of our safety. A wise choice, Atlas said. And Captain? If your people ever face a threat they cannot handle, if something comes that seeks to harm the innocent, remember that we are still here. Call out to the darkness between the stars. We will answer. The Starseeker turned away from the final silence and began its journey home. Behind them, the human ship faded into the darkness, taking up its eternal watch at the edge of known space. Veltar stood on his bridge and looked out at the stars. They looked the same as they always had. Peaceful, beautiful, safe, but now he knew the truth. Safety was not free. Peace was not natural. Both had been bought with the ultimate price. Somewhere in the darkness, humanity's fire still burned. Not the warm fire of hearth and home, but the cold fire of absolute purpose. It would burn forever, keeping watch over a galaxy that would never know it was there. And in the silence between, the stars, a billion human souls, stood guard over the dreams of species they had never met, protecting the future they would never see. The silence was not empty. It was full of love.